Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship UES Defender. The metal walls around him hummed with quiet energy. His crew worked at their stations, checking numbers on bright screens. Everything seemed normal, but Jake knew it was. A message came through the ship's communication system. Admiral Lisa Carter's face appeared on the main screen. Her eyes looked tired and worry lines marked her face. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center of Earth's main space station. "Jake, we have a big problem," Admiral Carter said. Her voice was serious. "The aliens are in trouble. Big trouble." Jake nodded. He had heard the reports. For the past 6 months, something called the Void Swarm had been attacking planets across the galaxy. These strange black creatures ate everything they touched. Whole star systems just disappeared, leaving empty space behind. The galaxy had many different alien races. There were the tall, proud Zentari with their blue skin and silver armor. The smart Vex creatures looked like walking computers with metal parts covering their bodies. The old Kelthara race had lived for thousands of years and claimed to have magic powers. 12 different alien species worked together in something called the Hegemony Alliance. But humans were not really part of this alliance, not in any way that mattered. Jake remembered when humans first met aliens 50 years ago. People on Earth had been so excited. They thought the aliens would welcome them as friends and equals. But that did not happen. The aliens looked at humans and saw weak, stupid creatures. They gave humans the worst jobs. Humans cleaned alien toilets, they carried heavy boxes. They did boring work that the aliens did not want to do. The aliens treated humans like smart animals, nothing more. Jake's friend Ryan Hayes had been a human diplomat. He tried to make things better between humans and aliens. 3 months ago, Ryan went to speak with the Zentari High Council. The Zentari were having a big meeting about trade and war. Ryan asked if humans could have better jobs and more respect. The Zentari leader, a tall alien with cold blue eyes, had laughed at Ryan. Not just a small laugh, but a loud, mean laugh that echoed through the Great Hall. Other aliens joined in. They pointed at Ryan and made jokes about how weak and stupid humans were. "Look at this little creature," the Zentari leader had said. "It thinks it can sit at the table with real civilized beings. Maybe we should give it a bone to chew on instead." The other aliens thought this was very funny. They laughed until tears came from their eyes. Ryan just stood there, his face red with shame. The meeting was broadcast across the galaxy. Every alien in space saw humans being mocked and laughed, and that was the day everything changed. Admiral Carter had called an emergency meeting of all human leaders. Representatives came from Earth, Mars, the moon colonies, and the space stations scattered throughout human territory. The meeting lasted for 3 days. People argued and shouted. Some wanted to fight the aliens. Others wanted to keep trying, to make peace. In the end, they made a decision that shocked everyone. Humans would go completely silent. No more communication with aliens. No more trade. No more diplomatic meetings. Every human ship, space station, and colony would cut off all contact with the alien world. It was like humans just disappeared from the galaxy overnight. Admiral Carter had explained it to Jake during a private meeting. "If they want to treat us like we don't matter, then we'll show them what it's like when we really don't matter," she had said. At first, the aliens barely noticed. They were used to ignoring humans anyway. The Zentari found other creatures to do their dirty work. The Vex built robots to replace human workers. The Kelthara acted like humans had never existed at all. But then the Void Swarm came, the first. Attack happened on a small mining planet on the edge of Vex space. The planet had 1 million Vex living on it. They were mining rare metals that powered their computer brains. One day, the planet was there. The next day, it was gone. Not destroyed, just gone. Empty space where a world used to be. The Vex sent ships to investigate. The ships never came back. More attacks followed. The swarm moved like a black cloud through space. Wherever it went, planets and ships disappeared. The swarm seemed to eat everything, turning matter into empty nothing. The Alien Alliance tried to fight back. They sent their best warships. The Zentari had powerful laser weapons. The Vex had smart missiles that could think for themselves. The Kelthara used their mysterious space magic. Nothing worked. The swarm kept growing. It ate 3 Zentari worlds in 1 week. A whole Vex fleet of 200 ships vanished while trying to study the creatures. Even the ancient Kelthara, with all their wisdom and power, could not stop the hungry darkness. Now 6 months later, the aliens were desperate. They had lost almost half their territory. Billions of alien lives were gone. Their mighty fleets were running away instead of fighting, and they started to remember that humans existed. Admiral Carter showed Jake the messages that kept coming to human space. The aliens were asking for help. Some messages were polite. Others were demanding. A few were begging. "We know humans have good ideas for fighting," one Zentari general had sent. "Please help us stop this threat. Human unpredictability might be useful against swarm tactics," a Vex message said. "Request immediate consultation." Even the proud Kelthara had sent a message. Ancient prophecies speak of a young race that will bring light to the darkness. Perhaps this refers to humans. But humans stayed silent. No replies, no help, no communication at all. Jake looked at Admiral Carter on the screen. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. Behind her, Jake could see officers working frantically at their stations. Earth's defense systems were active, ready to protect human space if the swarm came their way. "Stay silent, Jake," Admiral Carter finally said. "Let them remember what it feels like to be ignored. Let them face this darkness alone, just like they wanted us to face their mockery alone." Jake nodded. It was hard to watch alien worlds disappear. But humans had tried to help before, tried to be friends, tried to be equals. The aliens had laughed at them instead. Now the galaxy was learning what happened when you pushed away the only race that might be able to help you. The communication ended. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the void swarm was eating another world. And somewhere else, alien leaders were finally starting to understand that they had made a very big mistake. 6 months had passed since humans went silent. The void swarm kept eating worlds. 47 star systems were now empty holes in space. The great alien civilizations were falling apart. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster sat in the captain's chair of the UES Shadow. Her ship was small and quiet, built for watching without being seen. Amy had brown hair tied back in a tight knot and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She wore the dark blue uniform of the human space fleet. "Take us closer to the Etherian system," Amy told her pilot, Ben Rodriguez. Ben was a young man with quick hands and a steady heart. He had flown dangerous missions before, but this one felt different. The ship moved forward through empty space. In the distance, they could see what used to be the most beautiful planet in the galaxy. The Etherians had built cities made of living crystal that grew like flowers toward the sky. Their world had looked like a giant jewel floating in space. Now it was dying. Black tentacles as thick as mountains wrapped around the planet. They pulsed and moved like they were alive. Where they touched the crystal cities, everything turned to dust and then to nothing at all. The Etherian people screamed on all radio frequencies, begging for help that would never come. "Captain," said Kate Sullivan from her engineering station. Kate was a smart woman with red hair and gentle hands. She could fix any machine, but she could not fix what they were watching. "The swarm is growing bigger. It's eating the planet's core now." Amy watched through the ship's cameras as the beautiful blue-green world slowly disappeared. The Etherians had always been kind to humans. They were one of the few alien races that treated humans with respect. But even they had not stood up to the other aliens when humans were being mocked. "Record everything," Amy said quietly. "Earth, command needs to see this." The Etherian planet made a sound like crying as it died. Then there was nothing left but empty space and hungry black creatures looking for their next meal. Meanwhile, far away on Earth, Dr. Alex Morgan was working day and night in a secret underground base. The base was hidden deep under the Rocky Mountains where no alien spy could find it. Alex was a thin man with messy black hair and eyes that were always tired from too much work. He stared at computer screens filled with data about the void swarm. For months, he had been studying every piece of information humans could steal from alien communications. Alex was looking for something the aliens had missed, some weakness they could use. "Alex, you need to sleep," said Dr. Nina Brooks as she walked into his laboratory. Nina was Alex's partner in research. She was a smart woman with short blonde hair and a mind that could solve any puzzle. But this puzzle was harder than anything they had faced before. "I can't sleep while the galaxy burns," Alex said without looking away from his screens. "There has to be something. These creatures aren't magic. They follow rules, just like everything else." Nina sat down next to him and looked at the data. Numbers and graphs covered multiple screens. Most of it looked like random noise, but Nina's trained eye caught something interesting. "Alex, look at this pattern," she said, pointing to a waveform on one screen. "The swarm creatures don't act alone. They're connected somehow, like they share one big brain." Alex leaned forward. Nina was right. Hidden in all the noise was a pattern, a rhythm that connected every swarm attack. "It's like a hive mind," he said excitedly. "They're not individual creatures. They're parts of one giant organism." This was important. If the swarm had one central brain, then maybe it had one central weakness. But the aliens would never listen to human ideas. Humans were still maintaining their silence. In alien space, things were getting worse every day. War Marshal Thex of the Zentari Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sword of Honor. Thex was a tall alien with blue skin and silver markings that showed his high rank. He had commanded fleets in a dozen wars, but he had never faced an enemy like this. "Report," Thex ordered his communications officer. "We have lost contact with Battle Group 7, the officer said with fear in his voice. "That's 3 more fleets, gone in 2 days. The swarm is moving toward our home system." Thex felt cold fear in his chest. The Zentari had always been proud warriors. They had conquered half the galaxy with their superior weapons and tactics. But their weapons did nothing to the swarm, and their tactics were useless against an enemy that ate everything. "Send another message to human space," Thex ordered. "Sir, we have sent 47 messages. They don't respond." Thex remembered the day they had laughed at the human diplomat. It seemed so long ago now. The humans had looked so weak and foolish. How could creatures who could barely fight their own planet's wars help in a galactic crisis? But now, with his empire crumbling, Thex was starting to understand something. Maybe the humans had not been asking for charity. Maybe they had been offering help. The Vex Collective was also struggling. Their computer brains could calculate 1,000,000 possibilities in seconds, but the swarm did not follow any pattern they could understand. Every time the Vex thought they had figured out the swarm's next move, the creatures did something completely different. Leader Prime 907 processed data streams from across Vex space. The logical conclusion was clear. The collective would fall within 37 days. But logic could not accept this result. The Vex were superior to all organic life. How could mindless creatures defeat perfect machine intelligence? The ancient Kelthera were also failing. Elder Mysticus had lived for 3,000 years and had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. But the swarm was unlike anything in the ancient records. The Kelthera's mental powers developed over millions of years could not touch creatures that existed partially outside normal space. "The young race," Mysticus whispered to himself, remembering old prophecies. The prophecies spoke of a young race that would bring light to darkness, but we mocked them instead of listening. All across the galaxy, alien leaders were starting to realize the same thing. They had made a terrible mistake. The humans they had laughed at might be their only hope. But human space remained silent. In the UES shadow, Amy Foster received new orders from Admiral Carter. "Continue watching," the message said. "Record everything. Let them learn what happens when they face the darkness alone." Amy felt sad as she watched another alien world disappear. But she also felt something else. For the first time in 50 years, the galaxy was learning to respect human silence. While the galaxy burned, humans had not been sitting quietly. They had been working harder than they had ever worked before. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in a room that did not exist on any official map. The room was buried deep inside the moon, behind layers of rock and metal that could hide it from any alien scanner. This was Sanctuary 7, the most secret place in human space. Captain Jake Morrison entered the room. He looked around with wonder. The walls were covered with star maps and battle plans. Dozens of human officers worked at computer stations. Everyone moved with purpose and determination. "Jake, welcome to the real war room," Admiral Carter said. "What you see here must never leave this room. We've been preparing for this fight longer than you know." Jake was confused. "But Admiral, we've been silent for 6 months. How long have you been planning this?" Admiral Carter smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We've been planning this for over a year, Jake. We knew something like the Void Swarm would come eventually. The galaxy is full of dangers, and the aliens are too proud to see them coming." She led Jake to a large table covered with holographic displays. The displays showed human ships, but they were not like any ships Jake had seen before. These ships were sleek and dark, built for stealth and speed. "While the aliens were laughing at us, we were learning," Admiral Carter explained. "Every insult, every moment of being treated like animals taught us something important. We learned that we couldn't depend on anyone but ourselves." Captain Morrison studied the ship designs. "These look like they can disappear completely." "They can," Admiral Carter said proudly. "We call it quantum phase technology. The ships can move between normal space and something the scientists call quantum space. To enemy sensors, they simply don't exist." Meanwhile, in a hidden shipyard built inside a massive asteroid, Commander Sam Parker was training his pilots. Sam was a tough man with gray hair and scars from old battles. He had fought in the border wars before first contact with aliens. Now he was preparing to fight something much worse. "Listen up, people," Sam said to his squadron. 20 pilots sat in chairs around him. They were the best human pilots, chosen from hundreds of volunteers. "The aliens think we're weak because we avoid direct fights. They're about to learn that avoiding fights and being unable to fight are two very different things." One of his pilots, Grace Adams, raised her hand. Grace was a young woman with quick reflexes and a brilliant mind for three-dimensional combat. "Commander, how do we fight enemies that exist in multiple dimensions?" Sam smiled. "Good question, Adams. The answer is that we fight them in multiple dimensions too. Our new ships can phase between realities just like the swarm creatures can. The difference is we can control when and where we phase." In another part of the asteroid base, Tony Clark was working with a team of communication specialists. Tony was a quiet man who could hear patterns in radio noise that others missed. For months he had been studying the way the Void Swarm moved through space. "The swarm follows energy sources," Tony explained to his team. "They can sense the electromagnetic patterns that all technology creates. But our quantum phase ships produce no patterns when they're shifted. We can get close to the swarm without them knowing we're there." Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Morgan had made another breakthrough. He stood in his laboratory with Dr. Nina Brooks, staring at a device that looked like a metal sphere covered in glowing blue circuits. "This is it, Nina," Alex said excitedly. "The quantum resonance disruptor. If my calculations are correct, this device can force the swarm creatures back into normal space where regular weapons can hurt them." Nina examined the device carefully. "But Alex, the power requirements are enormous. And the mental strain on the operator would be incredible. Who could possibly use this?" Alex grinned. "That's the beautiful part. The device needs chaotic, unpredictable thought patterns to work properly. Alien minds are too organized, too logical. But human minds? We're chaotic by nature. Our thoughts jump around randomly. That's exactly what this device needs." The device had taken months to build. Human engineers had worked in secret, using materials stolen from abandoned alien mining operations. Every component had been tested and retested. This weapon represented humanity's best hope for victory. In space, the human fleet was growing. Ships with names like UES Retribution, UES Vengeance, and UES Last Hope were being built in hidden shipyards throughout human territory. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. Commander Parker took his new ship, the UES Silent Strike, on its first test flight. The ship was smaller than most alien warships, but it packed weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. Grace Adams flew beside him in her fighter, the UES Quicksilver. "All systems check out perfectly," Grace reported over the radio. "This ship handles like a dream. I can phase in and out of normal space so smoothly that even I barely notice the transition." The human fleet practiced new tactics in empty space far from alien sensors. They learned to appear and disappear like ghosts. They practiced hitting targets that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Most importantly, they learned to work together in ways the individualistic aliens never could. Admiral Carter watched the training exercises from Sanctuary 7. Captain Morrison stood beside her, impressed by what he was seeing. "The aliens always said we were unpredictable," Admiral Carter said. "They thought that was a weakness, but unpredictability is exactly what's needed to fight an enemy that can adapt to any logical strategy." Jake nodded. "When do we break our silence?" "Soon," Admiral Carter replied. "The aliens are almost broken. They've lost most of their fleets. Their homeworlds are under attack. When they're completely desperate, when they have absolutely nothing left, that's when we'll appear." "Why wait until then?" Jake asked. Admiral Carter's expression became hard. "Because they need to understand what it feels like to be truly helpless. They need to know what it's like when no one will help you no matter how much you beg. Only then will they truly appreciate what we're doing for them." Dr. Nina Brooks finished the final tests on the quantum resonance weapon. Everything was ready. The human fleet was prepared. The secret shipyards had built enough vessels to make a difference in the coming battle. But most importantly, the human spirit was ready. 50 years of being treated as second-class citizens had not broken them. Instead, it had made them stronger, more determined, and more united than they had ever been before. The aliens had taught humans a valuable lesson without meaning to. They had taught them that sometimes the best way to prove your worth is to let others fail without you. Only then do they realize how much they truly need you. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The final battle was about to begin in the Nexus system. This was the last stand for the Alien Alliance. Over 3,000 alien ships floated in space, facing an enemy that stretched across the entire star system like a living nightmare. War Marshal Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sword of Honor. Around him, the remains of the once mighty Zentari fleet prepared for their final fight. Half of his ships were damaged. His crews were exhausted and scared. But they would die with honor. "All ships prepare for final assault," Thex commanded. His voice was calm, but inside, he felt only sadness. The proud Zentari Empire would end today. Their homeworlds were already being consumed by the Void Swarm. The Vex ships moved into formation with mechanical precision. Leader Prime 907 calculated their chances of victory at 0%. But the Vex would fight anyway. It was their programming. Elder Mysticus of the Kelthara closed his ancient eyes and reached out with his mind. He could feel the hunger of the swarm creatures. They wanted to eat everything, to turn the entire galaxy into empty nothing. Even his 3,000 years of wisdom could not find a way to stop them. The swarm moved forward like a black tide. Tentacles as big as ships reached toward the alien fleet. Behind them came creatures that looked like living holes in space, dark spots that hurt to look at directly. "All ships, attack!" Thex shouted. Thousands of laser beams and plasma bolts shot toward the swarm. The weapons hit their targets, but the swarm creatures just absorbed the energy and grew bigger. Alien ships disappeared one by one, eaten by hungry darkness. Thex made his final decision. "Set course for the swarm's center. We will ram them with everything we have." The Sword of Honor turned toward the largest swarm creature, engines burning at maximum power. Thex would die, but maybe his sacrifice would hurt the enemy somehow. Then something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open right in front of the alien fleet. Holes appeared in empty space, and through those holes came ships that no one had seen before. They were dark and sleek, moving like hunters in the night. 200 human ships appeared out of nothing, their hulls gleaming with strange blue energy. They moved in perfect formation, like dancers who had practiced their steps for years. On the bridge of the UES Defender, Captain Jake Morrison opened communication channels to every alien ship in the system. His voice cut through the noise of battle, clear and strong. "This is Captain Morrison of the Human Defense Fleet. We heard you might need some help." War Marshal Thek stared at his screens in shock. The humans had been silent for so long that many aliens thought they had all died or run away. But here they were, appearing like ghosts from another dimension. Commander Sam Parker led the first attack wave in his ship, the UES Silent Strike. Beside him flew Grace Adams in the UES Quicksilver. Their ships moved between dimensions, phasing in and out of normal space like they were dancing with reality itself. "All fighters, begin quantum torpedo attack," Sam commanded. The human ships fired weapons that looked like balls of twisted light. When the torpedoes hit the swarm creatures, something amazing happened. The creatures screamed, a sound that could be heard across multiple dimensions. For the first time, they were hurt. The quantum torpedoes tore holes in the fabric of space-time. The swarm creatures, which had always existed partially outside normal reality, were suddenly forced back into normal space where regular weapons could hurt them. "Impossible," whispered Leader Prime 907. The Vex had tried quantum weapons before, but they had never worked. How were the humans making them work? The answer was in the ships themselves. Human minds controlled every quantum torpedo, every phase transition, every dimensional shift. The chaotic, unpredictable nature of human thought patterns was exactly what was needed to fight an enemy that existed in multiple realities at once. Grace Adams flew her fighter directly through a massive swarm creature. Her ship phased into quantum space just as the creature tried to grab her, then phased back into normal space behind it. Her quantum torpedoes hit the creature from inside, and it exploded into 1,000 pieces of dying darkness. "Target the big one in the center," Grace called over the radio. "That's gotta be their queen or leader or whatever." In the center of the swarm was a creature larger than a moon. It pulsed with dark energy, coordinating the attacks of all the smaller creatures. This was the hive mind that Dr. Nina Brooks had discovered, the central brain that controlled the entire swarm. Dr. Alex Morgan sat in the weapons control room of the UES Last Hope. In front of him was his greatest creation, the quantum resonance disruptor. The device hummed with power, waiting for his command. "Nina, are you ready?" Alex asked over the intercom. "Ready, Alex," came Nina's voice from the ship's bridge. "All human ships are in position. Fire when ready." Alex placed his hands on the control interface. The device connected directly to his mind, reading his thoughts and emotions. He thought about every insult humans had endured, every moment of being treated like animals, every time the aliens had laughed at them. But he also thought about hope, about the future, about proving that humans were more than the aliens ever imagined. The quantum resonance disruptor fired. A wave of pure chaos shot out from the human ship. It was not made of matter or energy, but of pure human thought patterns. The wave hit the swarm's hive mind like a storm of confusion and creativity. The giant central creature screamed as its perfect order was disrupted by human chaos. Its connection to the smaller creatures was severed. Suddenly, the swarm was no longer one unified force, but thousands of individual creatures that did not know how to work together. "All ships attack now," Captain Morrison commanded. The combined human and alien fleet struck together. Laser beams and plasma bolts, now able to hurt the confused swarm creatures, lit up space like fireworks. Quantum torpedoes from human ships tore through the enemy ranks. The swarm began to retreat. For the first time since the attacks began, the dark creatures were running away. They fled back toward the empty space between galaxies, leaving behind only the echoes of their dying screams. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came over all communication channels. She had watched the battle from Earth, and now she spoke to the entire galaxy. "This is Admiral Carter of the Human Defense Fleet. The threat has been ended. The galaxy is safe." War Marshal Thex found his voice after long moments of silence. "Admiral Carter, we cannot thank you enough. We owe you our lives, our worlds, Everything. Yes, you do, Admiral Carter replied simply. Remember that, Elder. Mysticus spoke for all the Kelthera. The prophecies were true. The young race brought light to the darkness. We were fools to mock you. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching as alien ships sent messages of gratitude across all frequencies. The silence was finally broken, but everything had changed. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again. The quiet species from the small blue planet had become its saviors, and everyone would remember the day when humanity's silence ended with a roar that saved them all.